okay, look, no matter how much I tell people fear is not bad, the word is still going to have an imprint in our subconscious. So we need to create a new one, right? So Fearvana became the essence to combat this demonization of fear, to say that, look, fear and nirvana are not in fact opposites, but they're complementary. Like, fear is not the antithesis of nirvana, but the access point to it.
You know, there's people who literally get sponsored to do what you do so that they can just train and condition and recover full time. Yet you're also an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
How do you even balance all that?
You know, I chose, when I first started getting into this stuff, I had pondered getting into the sponsored athlete route. I chose not to. Not that there's a right, wrong, good, bad, but I chose not to because there's a lot of broke sponsored athletes.
Sure.
A lot of broke sponsored athletes. And they they have to do with kind of what they're but they have to kind of play the game of sponsorships. The sponsor kind of controls in some way, you know, and then when they speak, like one of my sponsored athlete friends told me every time he speaks, he has to mention all the sponsors. And I was like, I don't want to do that route. So I'm going to build myself, build a business, build a brand around what I do that will allow me to then kind of fund, because these are very expensive. As I was telling you, you know, my Antarctica expedition this year is $120,000, you know, so very expensive. So I'm going to build myself. So how I manage it is, I mean, the fundamental thing is partnering with people who are smarter than you, surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. My skill set, where I shine is I am very good at enduring suffering. I'm pretty damn good. I would argue some of the best in the world. But most other things I don't know much about. I'm not the smartest entrepreneur by any stretch of the imagination, you know? So where can I partner with people to build alliances that allow me to free up my time to train 20 hours a week? You know, even with my training, I'm about to start working with the top dog in the sort of polar expedition and mountaineering coach, because I know enough about fitness that has gotten me where I'm at, but for what I'm now training for, I need to it's not just mindless suffering, I need to train really smart. So same thing with business. I have blessed with incredibly smart, very successful entrepreneur friends who guide me, who help me. You know, every arm of what we're building with Fearvana is all partnerships. So we're launching a Fearvana clothing line. I've partnered with people who know what they're doing. Supplement line, partner with people who know what they're doing, you know? So creating effective partnerships and surrounding yourself with smarter people than yourself is, I mean, that's where we met, right? At that event where I was like, arguably the dumbest entrepreneur in that room, you know, the noob compared to most of those people. They were incredibly successful. I was a total noob, but that's where you learn. You got to be willing to put yourself in situations where you feel stupid. And I felt stupid in that room, you know, but that's how I grow. So partnering with people allows me to constantly looking at, and it's an ever evolving thing where are those points of leverage where I can say, okay, this I don't need to be doing anymore. Here's where I can outsource. Here's where I can move the needle so I can then focus on this, you know? And my main forte is adventure exploration. Like if I had to label myself one category, it'd be adventurer, explorer, not entrepreneur. So I want to build kind of like what Richard Branson did as the model. He was the brand, he was the face of the brand, right? He has nothing to do with most of the Virgin brands, but he built a brand around himself and this identity, and then he licenses the name. So that's kind of the model I want to follow to build the Fearvana empire, the Fearvana brand, because I also believe it's solving one of the greatest problems in the human condition, which is our negative relationship to suffering. You know, because if you think about it, if we develop a positive relationship to any kind of suffering, fear, pain, stress, anxiety, struggle, guilt, whatever the struggles of life, if we develop a positive relationship to it, inevitably we live a happier life. We live a more blissful life. Yep. And ultimately, what is it we seek, right? You can put whatever words you want to it. Happiness, fulfillment, inner peace. That's what we seek, right? Some flavor of that. And so what Fearvana is doing is helping people reframe their relationship to suffering, so we can say, even when I go through the pains of life, whether it's a pain that's been handed upon me or a pain I choose to seek, I can smile in the face of it. I can enjoy it. I can fall in love with it.
Tell me about Fearvana. Like, how did you come up with what is now effectively the movement? And you were kind enough to give me your book. Love it. But how do you come up with the name, and how do you describe the movement and all the different, you know, from apparel to supplements and all the different ways you're impacting?
So the name I did not come up with. My ex-wife did. I had been living this lifestyle, like pursuing fear, seeking it, and we were trying to crystallize it. And when she said it, I was like, "That is gold."
That's it. Yeah.
Like that was awesome. We bought 20 different domain names,
Yeah.
because it was. So I can say with no ego that I thought when I heard it was like, "This is awesome," And she coined this name of this idea that we were living, because I at this point. So when it came up, like I had just gotten out of. To kind of bring it back a little bit, when I came back from the war, I struggled. I was diagnosed with PTSD, struggled with depression, heavy drinking at a point in my life that I was downing a bottle of vodka at night. This would go on for days on end until I got to a point where I was seconds away from picking up a knife and slitting my wrists after one of these 5-day binge sessions. So when I hit rock bottom, that's when I started my climb out of that abyss. And it wasn't like a smooth, easy climb. It was a, crawling, fighting your way from it. I slipped again, all of that. Got to the other side. When I finally kind of really felt I was in a good space, healed, I wanted to share everything I had learned, And I remember meeting Jack Canfield, the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and I asked him, what would you do differently if you could go back in your career? He said, I would have written my book sooner. So I was like, all right, this would be a good time to share everything I've learned, because obviously I'm not the only person who suffered. I had lost 2 junior Marines to suicide, and people, whether veteran or not, everybody suffers, of course. And so how can I share what I'm learning to help people reframe this? So I was like, all right, let me write a book. And originally I was going to call it The Other Side of Fear. But that kind of sounds like every other personal development book, right? And so Shruti, my ex-wife, coined Fearvana, and that was gold. And the way now I describe it is, the idea of it is that fear and nirvana are 2 seemingly contradictory ideas. Right? People demonize fear all the time. I mean, how many times do you hear, be fearless, don't be scared? Fear is, people hear the word fear and don't think of it as something positive. And that was what we wanted to combat. Whether it be fear, stress, anxiety, pain, suffering, guilt, struggle, any of these words don't conjure up positivity. The essence of it was, okay, look, no matter how much I tell people fear is not bad, the word is still going to have an imprint in our subconscious. So we need to create a new one, right? So Fearvana became the essence to combat this demonization of fear, to say that, look, fear and nirvana are not in fact opposites, but they're complementary. Like fear is not the antithesis of nirvana, but the access point to it. And so the fundamental essence of what we do is to help people develop a positive relationship to suffering of any kind, fear, struggle, all of it, develop positive relationships so they can find, live, and love their worthy struggle.
Let me just, before you go on, because I think you said it so matter-of-factly, our audience may have missed it. Fear is the access point, the entryway, the doorway to nirvana.
To bliss.
And
absolutely.
to bliss, to happiness. And someone might go, well, wait, tell me more. How can that be? And I would challenge them by saying, the things that scare you the most, once you've done them, have given you the greatest joy when you've accomplished it,
Absolutely.
right? The easiest would be, well, I'm afraid to jump out of an airplane and parachute down. It's scary. I have fear. And you do it, and the level of bliss and happiness and accomplishment you feel when you're now embracing the dirt, it's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Launching a business, having a child. I mean, it's so scary to go, I'm going to get married and have a child, start a family, and then you do it, and you're like, holy cow, I get to raise and love and guide this beautiful little package, right? Like the bliss from that is massive. So it is indeed, fear is the access point to nirvana, to bliss and happiness, and you're so well spoken, and you speak so eloquently. I didn't want that point to be missed. I think that is truly the gem out of this.